And you are now live.
Okay, so this is Senate Appropriations, and we're trying to focus this afternoon on bills that have spending, and they are coming to us very late. We had hoped that they would have been voted out Wednesday afternoon, but there's been some delay. So our first bill that we're going to review is the capital bill, which is usually pretty straightforward. And except this time there is some ARPA money there. And so we're going to be taking a look at that because we are moving all ARPA money into any ARPA appropriation into the budget. So with that, I don't know who's going to present, Becky or Catherine.
Sure, why don't I'll start it off and Becky will go through the language, but I might remind you the capital bill is a 2-year appropriations. They appropriate both years, FY22 and FY23. There's a spreadsheet that I can share if you want me to. I think it was also emailed to you. The only change from the House version is that the Senate institution moved $50,000 out of a line item in the Buildings and General Services for door controls at a correctional facility, and they put that money towards the walleye, $25,000 each year. So that was the one financial change in the bill that was made. And they actually didn't make that many changes.
They substituted money for door security with walleyes. Could you go through that again?
Well, it was 50.
The walleyes out or left the walleyes in?
Walleyes are in. The total appropriation for the door control was 2.8 million. So 50,000, and BGS said they could, that line item could be reduced and it would be fine. So that door control at Springfield now 2.75 million. And there is now $25,000 each year for the walleye who have.
Well, I'd like to spend at least a couple hours debating that one. Okay.
Well, it looks like the whole bill, they changed only about 200 or 1,000 or less.
Was that the
50,000.
whole? Was that the whole
Just 50.
week's work?
Just
It's
50,000, but
50.
there are some language changes that Becky can walk through, and
Okay.
and she will walk through one of the changes they made is on the federal language. So I don't know if you want to review the standard sections of the capital bill at all, or if we should just go straight to the changes that are.
We normally accept the same as we do with the transportation plan, the work of the policy committee. With the hours that have been spent between the two committees, I doubt that we would see anything that we would second guess. So with that explanation about the only fiscal spending change was reducing the door control for Springfield facility by 50,000 to free up money for the walleyes. Okay. I'm
We
going
could
to
debate that for a couple of hours.
Yeah, you can do that by yourself, Senator Starr, you and Anita. I'm going to keep going. So Becky, do you have
Sure.
comments about the language?
Yeah, so I can speak to anything in the underlying bill, but I can, if you want me to just go directly to the amendment as
Yes.
passed by Senate institutions. Okay.
Will this be
So-
shared, Becky, or are you working from something on our website?
I had sent it to Chrissy, so whatever. So I think it's on your webpage, but I can also share. I don't know what this committee prefers to do.
Be great if you could share it,
Yeah, if you can.
please.
Can you do that, Chrissy?
Yeah, Becky, would you like me to do it or would you like to pull it up?
I can pull it up. That's
Okay,
fine,
great. Thank you.
if I have that ability.
Yes.
Are you a
Okay.
host? Okay.
Yep, it looks like I have it now. Okay. So let me just make it a little bigger. So for the record, Becky Wasserman, Legislative Counsel. So this is the amendment as passed by Senate institutions. As Catherine just noted, the first instance of amendment is changing that $50,000 from the door controls. The second instance of amendment is striking out some language in the Commerce and Community Development section that said that the Department of, or the Agency of Natural Resources could not reef the Adirondack So that was struck out, that language that prohibited that. And there's some other language
you-
associated with
Could you,
that.
could you repeat the Adirondack, please?
I think it was
Sure.
sinking the boat in Lake
Yeah, sinking the
Champlain.
boat.
And they
Yeah.
decided not to let it be sunk.
No, they changed it so it could be sunk.
Yeah, they changed
Oh,
it so it could be
well,
sunk.
we're against that, right?
Well,
I'm agnostic as the money committee. They can fight it out in conference.
There is some additional language. I think natural resources weighed in on this as well, and there's some
Oh, okay,
rulemaking.
then I don't need to, then we don't need to be involved in sinking a boat.
I would just say that language in natural resources, though, is going forward, not really dealing with this.
What?
What? Not really dealing, well, what does it deal
What
with?
does it mean?
It deals with in the future what would happen
Oh, all right. I'm going to suggest we keep moving.
in cases like this.
So the third instance of amendment is just adding in the walleye appropriations, the 25,000 in each
Uh-huh.
year. So I'll skip that. The fourth instance is what you might be more interested in. There are two sections. There were two sections in the House passed version relating to federal funds. This one is being amended. Section 26 is being amended in here. The underlying one doesn't change, so I can bring that up after I speak to this if you'd like to see that as well.
Okay.
There's no appropriation in this section. This is speaking to the pot of money in ARPA that is specifically the coronavirus capital
Yeah,
projects
so
fund.
113 million.
That's
Mhm.
correct. So it's just setting out some intent and a process for how projects would get considered next year in the legislative process. So in the intent section, it says that of those, that 113 million, it would be used to carry out critical capital projects for all three branches of government. And this language is mirroring here what is in the federal legislation
Yeah.
to directly enable work, education, health monitoring in response to COVID-19. Subsection B is setting out prioritized uses. So it's saying that the money is prioritized for use between all three branches of government, and that not one branch can have exclusive use of any of the entire amount of the funds. And then subsection C is just setting up a process for coming up with a priority list for how to use these funds. So C1 deals with the executive side's list of priorities. So that would come by December 15th through Commissioner of Finance and Management. And it would go, the way the language is set up is that they would recommend a list of priority projects to use those funds by the executive branch, and that would go into the governor's proposed capital budget report for next year. So then it would essentially come to the institutions committees to be considered in next year's capital budget. There's
Becky?
also, sure.
Just a quick question. So the language in each of these instances says for capital projects in the administrative branch, in the legislative branch. In terms of the legislative branch, do you read that to mean projects in our purview in the Capitol complex, et cetera? Or do you read it to be in legislation that might come out of?
I think the
I was
intent,
interpreting it, we could use the money for capital projects needed by all three branches of government.
But I mean, we had at one point talked about a couple of different things that we were pulling out of the big bill and saying to people, well, there's this 113 million. So can people or institutions outside the legislature receive any of this money?
so the executive branch language, so I'll point you to line 12 here.
I'm not
Says
sure that they can, because when this, Stephanie, is this the one when we accepted it had subject to appropriation?
I think there's an application process for it, so we haven't got, I don't think the funds have actually been provided to the state.
No, but
yet.
in H 315, in the grant acceptance, we accepted this grant subject to appropriation, the capital grant.
But I think that in answer to the question, the way the language for the executive branch is that it's actually by the executive branch. And this was actually language worked out between the chairs of institutions and the administration, that the executive branch wanted some flexibility to either have it before executive branch agencies or departments, but also to be used by them for some of the other of the governor's other priorities. I think the language specifically with respect to the legislature and the judiciary, you're correct that by saying in the legislative branch, it's having the Joint Legislative Management Committee come up with a list of priorities. So that is more suggesting capital projects like in the State House or in the Capitol complex, and the same with the court administrator
But Becky,
for the judicial branch.
sorry to stop you. So you said that, but for the governor, he could use it for some of his other priorities. Do you mean outside
Mhm.
outside of
Yes.
government? So
Yeah.
so are we are more restricted than the governor?
These are just recommended uses. This is just coming to the Capitol bill next year. This is not appropriating money. This is just saying the idea is for each branch to come up with ways to use the funds.
So if I might also, the Joint Legislative Management Committee is really about your building. I mean,
Right.
And you were going to have the capital bill process to work through all the other things, but the idea was that the judiciary would speak to the court, what the courts need, the legislature would speak to what the legislature needs, but then there was also this broader discussion within the context of the capital bill of, like you do every year, how do you appropriate the funds? So the recommendation, I think the envisionment was just about JLMC would just talk about what the legislature needs specifically.
And I think it's specifically aimed at, what, for example, like if there's a new HVAC system that's needed to get the building up and running, or, people back into the State House or the courts, then I think that it's supposed, the idea is that it's used for those types of projects, but of course that the legislature can decide something different next year.
Okay, so my basic question is just, could, say, the appropriations committees of each branch agree that they want to fund work outside of Montpelier on some other topic that comes under what would normally be capital expenditures?
If I understand it, I want to check this out. The earlier language does give the executive branch the authority to recommend funding for those kind of community
Like affordable housing or something like that.
It allows that recommended use. Everything still has to come through the appropriations process.
That's correct.
And so the executive branch will come up with their recommendations, put it in the capital bill. The legislature would do the same. The courts would do the same. And then we would, institutions, as I understand it, would review the recommendations and put whatever they want in a bill. And then it would come to us to be appropriated. This I understood was worked on and between the committees and the executive branch to get the language that we're seeing here. So we're not giving up our appropriation authority in the end. It's still got to come through the regular budget process, the appropriations process. And as Stephanie referenced in H315, remember we had language that it shall be subject to appropriation, even though it hasn't come down yet.
Okay, that's good. Thank you.
Okay, let's keep going on this one.
Okay, so I'll finish what's in the amendment and then I'll go back to the underlying bill for the other federal fund section. So the fifth instance of amendment is, again, speaking to that boat sinking reference, that this came from Natural Resources, that giving the Department of Environmental Conservation the authority to adopt rules about creating criteria for issuing an encroachment permit and creation of artificial reefs or sinking of vessels. And then a section that has that by January 1st of next year, DEC will initiate that rulemaking.
And I
with a-
assume that's the language that Senator Westman was referencing.
Yeah, so it is sort of forward looking. It doesn't deal specifically with the Adirondack, but there will be a process going forward if it comes up again that they want to sink a vessel.
Okay.
Then the last piece of language added was the authority for BGS to sell the Williston Public Safety Barracks. And that is because a new barracks that are being constructed right now. And the proceeds of that sale will go back to the capital bill in the future.
So I want to go back to section, is it section 25?
Yes.
It's not
and
subject to the
I
amendment.
will bring that up. Can you see this now, or do I have to reshare this?
No, we
screen?
can
No, we
see it.
can see it.
Okay, so I just gotta scroll down to section 25. Okay, so section 25 is setting up a process for using federal funds. As you all know, in the American Rescue Plan Act, the state and local coronavirus fiscal recovery funds section says that specifically that some of the money can be used for supporting water, broadband, and sewer infrastructure. There is no broadband infrastructure in the capital bill, so it's just speaking to water and sewer. But this language is setting up a process where some of the appropriations that are the state dollar appropriations in the capital bill can be offset by federal funds if they qualify for water and sewer infrastructure.
Can those federal funds be used for wells, for water systems?
There's another provision in the general that does talk about private water supplies. That's in the governor's proposal.
Okay, well, I've got two situations, obviously, down here, both dealing with PFOA. One is Pownell, where a portion of the water supply is contaminated with PFOA, and those are wells, and they need new wells dug. I think that's the only way out, because there's no way to get water, otherwise. And then I have constituents who have wells that are contaminated with PFOA that need deeper wells dug. Are any of those things available under these ARPA grants? Or is it just for municipal sewer and water?
So my understanding is that the language just refers to water and sewer infrastructure, and hasn't been specific guidelines yet on that. So I think the answer is that the state is waiting for federal guidelines on the use of those funds.
Should I just put in just a request that we keep an eye on, particularly for the town of Pownell and their contaminated water system?
Yeah, actually, the town might be eligible under a different provision.
I think they've got 2 or 3 different water systems.
Okay, but if these are public and it's a small village there, Catherine, you remember the language that we got in a couple years ago to assist these very small villages?
Yes.
I don't know whether Pownell would come under that or not, but we might want to check on that.
Is
but
that the
I'd
municipal
appreciate it.
pollution control grants?
It was you know what, I'll have to go back and look. It was a provision that we worked on with Eric, with A&R, if I remember correctly. And
Yeah, so there are grants in the capital bill right now and sort of low interest loan programs that allow for that type of work.
Right.
And
And
I
I think-
actually, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I think that actually it would be, in the end, that it's a no cost. It would
Right.
end up defaulting to a grant. But we can check on it. I just want to keep getting through. We can put out, how do we deal with those contaminated wells? What's happening here is this is an appropriation of ARPA, and we are moving any appropriation, ARPA appropriation, into the budget. Because there is a desire to keep all that ARPA spending in one place. And this is, in fact, I understand maybe this is problematic because to the extent permitted, this can't be used as match, and therefore there's a problem with this. But even if we said it's not a problem, this has got to move into the budget. So Stephanie, I know that you had some conversation this morning in natural resources.
That very point you just made, that the secretary made, that there is a concern that most of the bond money from water does match other federal dollars. That was the concern she raised this morning.
So I think that was discussed in the institutions committees, and the amount that is being allowed for offset. So it's not more than 15. It's essentially not more than 15 million because it's only for FY22. It does not include any of the amounts that require a match. It's contemplating other water and sewer infrastructure that's appropriated in the capital bill that are not, don't have a match requirement. For example, there's
3-acre rule.
the 3-acre permit rule. There's the 500,000 for the I never say that right. The the contaminants of special
Emerging concern.
Sure. Something like that.
You know,
Special fund.
I guess what I might also say, it's entirely up to you. I understand why you're moving it. I would say that the language, what I sent Emily Byrne, who's the budget director there, looked at the language. The language is very clear. It has to follow federal guidance. So it's up to you all can decide if you want to do this or the amount. But I think the language doesn't, if it doesn't qualify, then they can't use it. And it was only up to 15 million. So I think the language won't create a problem with federal law. And it may not reach 15 once A&R goes through it. There are several items in there that are not.
It's, I understand all that. And we've got the same kind of question with some of the ARPA funding where if, it's not permissible or whatever. We have had a great deal of communication that around keeping the ARPA fund clearly identifiable, transferable, and the governor was really wanting an entire ARPA budget. We are not going to do that. We're keeping ARPA in the big bill, but we're keeping any of the funding that's appropriated from this federal source in that section of the budget. So that's why I'm saying if we want to keep this in, that 15 million, which is appropriating ARPA funding, then we would put it into one of the buckets around that is there with water quality or whatever. That's all I'm saying.
Can I just ask?
Yes, go ahead.
So just so I get this in my head as a backup. So we use the ARPA money to free up bonding. The bonding capacity can be used next year. And
Yeah.
that way, so if it can't be, the bonding capacity is used this year, but we wait a year to use the bonding capacity. Okay.
Correct. That's correct.
I just wanted to, from a high level, I didn't hear anybody say that.
So that's the only thing that I would say, that we have done every other bill, we have pulled it in. And I'm recommending that we not leave this money outside the governor's proposed, in terms of keeping the ARPA money clearly, not scatter it all around. So we have pulled ARPA from a variety of bills. We're even going to be looking at 315 and to some extent when we get out a little further. And so
I move we take all the ARPA funds out of whatever number bill this is.
Okay. All right. So that would be moving section 25 or 26. 26.
It's
25.
25.
So we're going to take section 25 out and we will put it in the ARPA section of the budget. And it's 15 million.
The language.
It's
30
reserving a total of 30 million, but only an amount of not more than 15 million in FY22. And then there was a process here for FY23 where the commissioner, similar to the capital funds, would come back in December and include that additional 15 million for proposal in the governor's.
I move we take both those sections then.
It's all the same section. It's just
Oh.
the amount that's referenced here is 30 million, but
Oh.
in reality, the total amount that could have been done between now and next January was only 15 million.
Oh, okay.
Well, we're doing a couple of areas where we're appropriating a portion and reserving a portion. So however we want to write it, consistent with what we've done in other ARPA appropriations is what we will do here.
Yep.
Okay, so committee, we're going to hold to the purity of our ARPA funding, and it's all in one place,
Yep.
regardless of what committee is recommending it, because we're getting ARPA spending from every other committee and in their bills.
Yep.
So everybody's treated the same. Okay. All right. So we're going to move. We need an amendment to strike.
I made the amendment to strike,
I'm
but
sorry.
I wasn't sure which section.
Section
Okay.
25.
So the motion has been made by Senator Sears to remove section 25.
Yeah.
We will for inclusion in the big bill.
Right. I'll second that.
Okay. So then is that it? Otherwise, we're going to move the bill favorably as amended unless there's something more that we need to consider.
Could I ask a quick question?
Yes.
We've been by it. On the sale of the barracks in Williston,
Mhm.
could you scroll back to that?
Yeah, do you see it?
Yeah. Could we put anything on that it shall not be sold for less than what it's appraised for or something like that?
29 VSA 166 actually has a process by which the commissioner of BGS has to sell property.
I think Senator Starr is concerned that we seem to buy high and sell low.
Yeah, I don't know what that process is, but whoever runs that process always agrees to sell stuff cheap.
I thought that was in statute.
Yeah, so it says the property, I'm just reading from 29 VSA 166. It says the property shall be sold to the highest bidder at public auction or upon sealed bids in the discretion of the commissioner of BGS. And then there's requirements about the notice of the sale. So statute does actually, what the statutory section that's referred to here does actually say that they should be selling it to the highest bidder.
I'd rather have it sell to the appraisal limit.
Well, but can we change that at this point?
Well, why couldn't you add it to
I
the?
think that's true of all surplus property, though. You look at towns when they sell property, the bankruptcy court, when they sold Southern Vermont College, they did it through bid. And they had to take, the highest bid. And so I think it may be that what we think it's worth isn't what it's appraised at, Bobby. In other words, I'm being inartful in saying this, but they started at 3 million for the Southern Vermont property and they ended up 4 million something through a bidding process, which the property is worth a lot more than that, but they would never get, what it's really worth.
Well, I don't wanna hold us up with a big hoodoo, but I mean, it's just sinful for what we pay for stuff, and then few years later, we sell it for 50 cents on the dollar.
Well, I guess we have to trust the statute will be followed, and for us to amend it at this point is.
Well, that's
But Bobby, if you want to,
another year.
if you want to put in a bill, I will join you on it in January.
Yeah, we'll have to do it in another Yes, early on, so, yeah.
All right, so we're hoping that this time we are going to have the best sale, return on the sale of that property. The location, it seems to be in a very prime spot. And one would hope that we would not only get the appraised value, but in fact might have something even higher.
I hope.
So what we have is a motion to strike section 25. And so that's from Senator Sears. We are in agreement, and what we could do if we want is to just move the bill favorably as amended and just do it as one action, and as amended to do that.
I'll change my motion if Senator Starr is willing to second it.
Yep,
To report the bill favorably as amended,
as
and the
amended.
amendment is to remove section 25.
Okay.
Yep, that sounds good.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Nope.
Senator Benning isn't available till next Tuesday. We have to move this out no later
Is
than
there-
Monday, so he's a little late. And I'm going to then have our clerk please call the roll.
Senator Ballant. Senator Baruth, yes. Senator Nitka.
Yes.
Senator Sears.
Yes.
Senator Starr.
Yes,
Senator Westman.
Yes.
Senator Kitchell.
Yes.
Okay, we are 601.
I suggest we notify Senator Benning.
that, that we extracted anything for the northern part of Caledonia County from
And
the
we-
bill
and we had to-
voted it.
Reluctantly take out the walleye.
And we put all those things into the northern part of Orleans County.
If you took out the walleye, you're basically taking out all the changes.
Well, that's true. Okay, I'm going to suggest we move on. We have a bill.
Who's
I
the
don't know if it's-
reporter?
The reporter on the Capitol bill is whoever has BGS.
Ain't me.
Uh,
Probably you, Madam Chair.
no, I know I don't have BGS.
Don't have it.
I'm looking at my thing.
I basically
Bill
have
Gates,
everything.
Senator Baruth.
Senator
Okay.
Baruth reports the Capitol
Okay.
bill.
All
I
right.
will be
That'll give you a
pleased to
good
do it.
reason to have lunch with Senator Benning on Tuesday.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay,
I'm going to move on. The Dr. Dinosaur bill. That hasn't been referred to us yet. Is that correct, Stephanie?
I don't think it's been referred to us
Oh.
yet, but it was voted out of Senate Health and Welfare this morning, as I understand it. And
Madam
so-
Chair,
Yes.
sorry, I see Senator Ballant has joined us.
Oh,
Do you want to get
all
her
right.
vote on
Senator
that?
Ballant, we just voted the capital bill. The only thing we're doing is we are striking section 25 because it has an appropriation of ARPA funding, and we are moving all ARPA funding into one consolidated section.
Great.
So you will, okay, so you're voting to move the bill favorably as amended.
Yes, please.
Okay, so
All right, thank you.
that's a unanimous.
Yeah, okay, and Senator Baruth is reporting that.
Yeah.
Good job, clerk. Good job, clerk. Good job.
Heads up.
All right, do we have the other two bills, S-120 and H-210?
This is Chrissy. We have Senator Hardy and Jen Carby coming in. I'm sorry, Katie McGlynn coming in too on H-210. And then we have Jen Carby and Senator Hooker coming in on S-120 at 2:30.
Okay,
Is Jen coming in on, who's coming in on the Dr. Dinosaur bill?
Is that, which number is that? S-120 or?
no, it's an H bill.
H430-ish?
I don't have anybody coming in on Dr. Dinosaur right now.
Not-
Jen would be the drafter, I'm positive of that.
Yeah.
Let
All
me
right,
right now. And then did you want to have Chris come back and talk about the T-bill, even though it's in finance?
I think we could do that quickly. If he's prepared to talk about the sections that we're changing that have a fiscal impact that have to be reflected in the budget. And one of them is an increased swap of the federal grant that we got, the $50 million highway transportation grant. So we could do that, so we can make those changes in the big bill, even though the T-bill comes after that. So Chris, are you available to talk about the changes that would have to be reflected in the budget from the T-bill? And there are several as it relates to the swap of T funds with that federal grant that came in December. And then the other is changing and making sure an effective date is upon passage. So if Chris is available, the changes are very, very modest, and we could just say that we agree and we'll reflect them in the budget as we pass it.
So Chris just joined us now.
Okay. So Chris, if you would just walk through the parts of the T-bill that have to be incorporated into the budget itself. And my recollection is it's going to be the 3 million moving from highway aid over to structures and road to class 2 roadway, and increasing the overall funding for the the vehicle incentive. And I'm looking for the sheet here, and then changing the effective date and one section upon passage. So if you would just run through those pieces of the T-bill so that we can agree to incorporate them as passed.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. Chris Ripp, Joint Fiscal Office. Would the committee prefer me to share any documents on my screen or just walk through them section by section?
How many sections? We're not going to go through the whole T-bill.
Okay, that's fine. So
we're going to go through the sections that really are going to have to be reflected in the big bill, other than just adoption of the overall transportation plan.
Sure. I can do that pretty quickly. All right, can everybody see this on their screens? Okay, so this is section 3 of the T-bill is the highway maintenance section. The House had proposed paying for some one-time investments by swapping out some one-time federal grant funding that we received through the December coronavirus relief package by using some more of those dollars, which can be used for a wide range of maintenance activities, to free up some T fund that could then pay for some one-time activities. The House had proposed doing that swap to free up $4.775 million of T fund by using more federal dollars in FY22 instead of FY23. Whenever the Senate reviewed the transportation bill, they revised that number from 4.775 to 5.325 million. So that is an increase of $550,000. You will see that reflected in section 3 in the highway maintenance section of the T-bill. So the overall numbers for the maintenance budget will be $103.5 million. That's the exact same amount of total funding that the governor proposed and that the House proposed. The only difference is the Senate is proposing using $550,000 more of federal funds than the House has proposed. So there's going to be a swap of that federal and state funding. It's revenue neutral to the overall size of the amount of maintenance appropriation, but the Senate would just be proposing a change on the federal side. So that would be reflected in, I believe it's B905 of the big bill as well.
And just to remind the committee that there were major components of it that your Senate Transportation Committee discussed. It's 3 million that would go to towns for, as I say, class 2 highway or structures grants, and $1 million more for PV incentives. The governor's recommended 2.25, and this increased it by $1 million. And we would increase the money for Mileage Smart, which is the program that was up to 750. And we know that ANR is proposing in that package that gave us back on weatherization to put another 500,000 toward Mileage Smart because of the anticipated higher take up due to the staffing additions made in a community action. And then the agency came in at the very end and requested an additional swap of 400,000 to get us to the 550. Chris, do you want to just on the 400?
Sure. So
Is,
and that's a
as you
great,
can see, New Haven train station.
that's correct. Yeah, the New Haven train station showed up in section 34 of the transportation bill. So this I've switched documents here. This summary sheet breaks everything out, and I think a little easier way to track down without going through all the text. But in section 4 of the T bill, the agency has proposed moving a bridge out of the state highway bridge line, which shows up under the program development section of the budget, and move that down to the town highway bridge section. So this in the big picture is a revenue neutral change, but the Senate, in order to transact this, will be required to make a modification to B903 in the big bill, and another modification down in B914 town highway bridges, just to reflect the moving of that bridge. And that's a bridge in Springfield that costs about $514,000, and it's an 80-20 federal project. So you'll see that here under section 4. Really all the red numbers here on this chart are the things that changed. So you can see that not very many changes occurred. To what Senator Kitchell was just referring to, most of the changes are confined in the AOT one-time section, which is scattered throughout different sections of the T bill and is all funded in section B1104 of the big bill. So a quick overview of what those changes were. Overall, the agency had proposed $5 million in one-time spending. The House had proposed $9.775 million, and the Senate had proposed $10.325 million. So that goes back to that increase of $550,000. That increase is due to increasing the Mileage Smart appropriation from $600,000 to $750,000, all T fund, and that's what Senator Kitchell just referred to, and by adding up to $400,000 in T fund to assist with the relocation of the historic New Haven train station, which is being prompted by safety concerns due to the restoration of Amtrak service. So you'll see those numbers here. Those were the only things that changed the total, and that's what goes up to that increase of $550,000 over the House passed version. The other significant change that was made was the House had proposed using $3 million of one-time T funds for an across-the-board increase to town highway aid, which is distributed by a mileage-based formula. The Senate Transportation Committee proposed, instead of giving a $3 million increase to town highway aid, use that $3 million for additional town highway structures and class 2 roadway grant programs. So instead of providing sort of general aid to every community, which, and I have a spreadsheet up on the JFO website showing what that translates to into dollars for each town, but it's several thousand to low tens of thousands of dollars in one time. Instead, the Senate proposed using that money for structures and class 2 roadway projects, which have a longer useful life. And again, the ability of the state to do this is due to the fact that we got $50.4 million of one-time federal aid through the FHWA, the Federal Highway Administration, through the December coronavirus relief bill. Those $50.4 million can be used 100% federal for a pretty wide range of uses, including things like personnel, debt service payments, and maintenance. So and that money can be drawn down until September of 2024. So the agency had proposed using a lot of that money in FY22, and the legislature had proposed using just a little bit more of it in FY22 to help fund some of these one-time investments. So you'll see I have the corresponding sections of the big bill listed here where all of these one-time items are captured. Section 8 shows you where the $3 million of one-time aid would be for the town highway structures in class 2. Section 10 is for new PEV incentives for new PEV vehicles. The House added $1 million over the governor's recommended amount, and the Senate concurred with that recommendation. Mileage Smart is in Section 13 of the T-bill, and the Senate proposed a $150,000 increase over the $600,000 that the House passed. Section 18, 20, and 21 are all additional incentive programs to help people with emissions repairs, replacing their rides to more fuel efficient vehicles, and electric assisted bicycle incentives. The Senate concurred and made no changes to the House passed version. Section 22, Senate concurred with no changes to the administration's proposal for $1 million of one-time funding for level 2 EV chargers. And Section 34 was the new addition of the New Haven train station, which is $400,000. There were a few other sections that aren't reflected in here that will show up in the big bill, some of which is just due to effective date changes around the vehicle incentive programs. There was some concern raised that the existing appropriations might be exhausted by the end of FY21 because they're paying out incentives at a pretty good clip. There is some language in the T-bill that, and there would be some companion language proposed in the big bill to allow some of this FY22 one-time money to be used in FY21 in case they run out of incentives in the new PEV and Mileage Smart programs only. I think that pretty much covers the highlights, but if I'll go back through my notes, and if there's anything I missed, or if Senator Kitchell, if there's anything else you'd like me to touch on.
No, I think you've gone through the in probably more understandable way than I did. But normally the committee relies on the work of the Transportation Committee, and I am the person assigned to the transportation section of the budget, and I would just recommend that we concur with the changes that the Senate Transportation Committee has made and reflect those in the budget as required. And we move the effective upon passage so that we don't have any temporary break in the Mileage Smart program. Alice?
That's all fine. Can you just remind me what the central garage does again?
Central garage is where all the equipment, the trucks, the highway plow trucks, all the maintenance,
vehicles.
all the equipment is done through the central garage, and there's central procurement and standards and so forth. So that's what central garage does, is supply all the equipment used in all the districts throughout the state.
Thanks.
I'll second your motion, Madam Chair.
Okay, so we're gonna make these changes in the transportation section of the budget. Okay, so we don't need to vote any more than that because we're not changing anything in the T-bill because we don't have it. But we're anticipating that that it'll get passed, and this is what we're reflecting. So if it doesn't, we'll have to go in and amend somewhere along the line. Okay, so we've taken care of the T-bill, even though we don't have it. We're so efficient here. Do we have, let's see, we have, do we have anyone to speak to Dr. Dinosaur?
Madam Chair, so
Yeah.
You have a motion seconded, but do you want to wait to vote? Is that what you're saying?
We don't, this is just, we can't move the bill. We don't have it.
Understood, but you did have a motion and a second, so I thought I would ask.
Oh, well, but we're not voting on the T-bill. We're not
Okay.
voting on the transportation section of the big bill either.
Might I
So I don't
suggest
think we
that
need a
without
motion for anything at this point.
without objection, the motions can be withdrawn.
I don't know who even made it.
You did.
And then
Oh,
Bobby seconded.
no, I just said that I felt that we could agree to make the budget reflect what is in the T-bill. which
Oh.
we're going.
Well, Bobby seconded it as
Yeah.
if it was the motion.
Okay, so
I
it's,
thought we at least should vote it out, even though if we haven't got it, or we could vote to pass it upon on entering the room.
I just
Well-
know if I hadn't asked, it would have landed on me later.
Yeah, good
so-
point, clerk.
we don't need any motion at this point. We're
Okay.
just taking what is in the House, the Senate version of the transportation bill that has to be reflected in the budget and making those changes in anticipation of getting the bill. And so we're having to move stuff much faster than sometimes the
Normal.
system allows. So we're going to anticipate that bill will pass as it came out of your Senate Transportation Committee. Okay, so let's move on. We have, you said
Okay.
S 120 is 230, the testimony, H 210.
Is now, and I have Senator Hardy and
Okay.
hopefully Katie McGlynn joining us any moment. So we'll move
Okay.
to 10 next. And but Jen will be joining us on 120, and then she's prepared to speak to Dr. Dinosaur at that time as well.
So. And then we have some other language. Let me ask Stephanie. Oh, Stephanie's deserted us.
No, I just go off when, yep, what,
Okay, when we went through the budget, I mean, we haven't made all the final decisions, we haven't passed, but everybody is, I don't know who's out here advocating, but the number of emails coming in supporting the water positions. Those were the 3 positions that the House added to
well,
deal with.
so there's added positions, but there's also funding in DEC for vacant positions, and you have supported both on your first run through. So those
I
have
know.
been in since your walkthrough 2 weeks ago, as far as my tracking shows.
Well, I'm supposed to read it straight away, and these positions are critical. I just want you to know. And I think it's obviously these are coming out as from members from I'm sure an organization is getting members to write. So I'm sure I'm not the only one who's getting these emails about these positions.
Everything is critical, Madam Chair. Everything.
I know.
Every email I get, without this, the world will end.
I don't think.
That's not exactly what they say, but it's really getting to a point where the special interest groups have these people writing to us, and they often don't have all the information correct. And I feel bad for my constituents who write to us, and I just don't have time to get back to them because I am overfilled, like with hundreds of emails. I turn away for half an hour and I've got 60 more.
No, I think it's hard to convey in the aggregate what the volume of correspondence, and when we're in committees and from 8 in the morning, 8:30, or book through the lunch, etc., that the volume is. We were talking about the line from J. Alfred Prufrock. This is the way the world ends, not with a bang, but a whimper. Well, I'm
Nope.
beginning to feel like that's how we're going to be by the time we get done. We're going to be reduced to a whimpering assortment of committee members here, simply because the volume of, but maybe if anyone is listening, maybe we could say we have run through that section of the budget and our plan is to concur with the House. Maybe if we could at least make that public statement for anybody who's listening, that right now, unless something dramatic changes between now and Monday, we're concurring with the House. So we don't need to have any more emails
On the water positions.
on the water positions to tell us that we should agree with what we've already agreed with.
Well, I agree with you, Madam Chair, but I think it's also a case that often advocates and nonprofits feel as though getting the thing isn't all that they need to do. They also need to be seen having gotten the thing. So they want there to be a big email campaign so everybody knows they worked hard when the money comes through. So I wish it was as easy as telling them that they've got the money, but I think they're also demonstrating how hard they're working. So I don't know that there's a way
Or
to,
to their
stop it.
constituency.
That's what I'm saying.
Well, in the meantime, they're just putting us on our knees in terms of even
Right.
being able to keep up. So I'm going to move on. I see Senator Hardy is here, and maybe she's in a better frame of reference than the Appropriations Committee is relative to the work and the decisions that we've got to make in the next few hours of committee time. So you're here on H210, is that correct?
That's correct.
Oh, good. Well, welcome, and we will see if we can move through. I think maybe we've already got the funding in the budget for this, but if you would just give us a quick run through and we'll take a look.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a bill that was sent to us by the House a few weeks ago and we passed it in committee this morning. It's an act relating to addressing disparities and promoting equity in the healthcare system. And it sets up half the bill is findings, basically. So it's longer than it looks. And then it sets up a process for establishing a working group or a commission, I believe it is. And then that would make a bunch of recommendations on how to create an Office of Health Equity in the Department of Health. And there are a couple appropriations. There is a fiscal note that Nolan Langwell did, who I see is here. But as the chair said, the money has already been appropriated. Part of it was in H315, which is now law. And that was for the data portion of the bill. And then there's, I believe, $188,000 that's in the big bill as it came over to us from the House. And that would be for some per diems for the members of this commission, and also for, I believe, some funding for the Office of Racial Equity, for the Director of Racial Equity. And those are, as my understanding, are the appropriations related to the bill.
Okay. And we have basically pulled them out and they're being the spending is being dealt with in the budget.
Correct. The bill does not have any appropriations in it as it currently stands.
Yeah, it's only coming to us because there were appropriations in the underlying bill.
Yes, I believe so. Yes.
Okay. So I think considering the fact that we've already started funding it in a bill that we passed is an indication of our support for this work. And I'm going to, unless there are further questions, I think this would fall into Senator Westman's section of the budget, since it's Department of Health, and that we would move the bill favorably. So do I have a motion? Senator Ballant? Okay. Senator Starr, second. And other questions? Okay, I think the pandemic certainly pointed out very starkly the health disparities. So I'm going to, unless there are further questions of the health and welfare reporter of the bill, I'm going to have our clerk call the roll. Obviously, this is one where we're only getting it because of the funding that was there in the underlying bill. Senator Bruce, you want to call the roll?
Senator Ballant.
Yes.
Senator Baruth, yes. Senator Nitka.
Yes.
Senator Sears. Senator
Oops.
Starr.
Story of my life, I was muted even though you knew I said yes. You recorded me as yes and I was muted.
Senator Starr.
Yes.
Senator Westman.
Yes.
Senator Kitchell.
Yes.
Okay, unanimous.
And Senator Westman is the reporter.
Thanks, everyone. Good
All
luck
right,
with
thank you.
everything.
Yeah, have a great week. Are you the reporter for Dr. Dinosaur as well?
I know it's Senator Hooker.
Oh, that's Senator Hooker. And
Yep.
she's coming in on S-120 as well.
I believe, yes, I believe so.
Okay. And that's in 20 minutes. All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thanks, everyone. Have a good weekend.
Thanks.
Okay. Maybe in the 20 minutes, we can whack off some language. We can just get them fixed. In the memo that came over from Health and Welfare, there was language that related to DFR and work that they would do. And we did not want to take any action until we had confirmation from Commissioner Pichak that what language was satisfactory, was giving them work to do. And it's in the memo, if you've got it there, the 7-page memo that came to us from Health and Welfare. And it had to do with DFR's benchmark plan review. And so I'm going to recommend that in light of the commissioner's confirmation that he's seen the language and it's acceptable, that we would add that language, which was what we were waiting for. Committee, are you all set on that? Okay, thumbs up. All right, so we'll take care of that. The other was language relative to the waiver. We asked Ina Backus, and that was on page 6 of the memo, that the committee recommended language directing agency in its negotiations with CMS to strive to maintain or increase state flexibility. We love that. And to increase access to care, coverage, etc. That's been reviewed by Ina Backus, and she indicated that that language is perfectly acceptable for inclusion in the budget. So in light of that positive feedback, I would suggest that we move that the requested language into the big bill. Thumbs up, everybody? Okay. When we get Jen Carby here, we've got a couple of pieces of language as it
She's here.
relates. Jen, oh, hello, Jen. I thought I saw you. We had we can't agree. We haven't got the money would like to have spent more money. We can't. But there's language in section E311 on the nursing and primary care scholarship. Is that the right one, Jen, that we've been going back and forth with Dr. McLean and Liz Cody on?
Yes, that is the one.
Okay, and I think we've got the final draft that addresses the concerns. And would you agree, Jen, that we have
I agree that I was a little unclear at the end where it said it looks okay. So I have not made any changes since then.
That was how I interpreted it. It was much better. So if you want to pull that up, then we could replace the language in E311.
Yes, you wanted me to put that on the screen?
Yeah, if you would, please. We might as well take advantage of our 20 minutes here and move the equivalent of a bill or two.
Oops. Yes, this is okay. All right, so this is Medical Student Incentive Scholarship Program language. This replaces in the existing law enacted last year, there's the Medical Students Primary Care Scholarship Program. So this expands the name. A lot of the focus is still the same. Do you want me to just walk through what the changes are from the existing law? This is the first time.
Yeah, very quickly. Yes.
Okay. Sure. So it adds in VSAC to help administer this program and specifies that it's at the UVM College of Medicine. It gives a purpose as strengthening the workforce pipeline and increasing the number of new physicians practicing in Vermont to meet the healthcare needs of Vermonters with a focus on rural areas and undersupplied medical specialties. And then it takes out, some of the provisions are similar, but it seemed easier to read this way. So scholarships would be awarded to up to 10 students annually instead of 5 third year and 5 fourth year. So up to 10 students annually who commit to practicing in a medical specialty priority area, which we'll look at a little further on, in a region of Vermont other than Chittenden County, and a practice site not owned by an academic medical center, and that accepts patients who are covered by Medicaid, Medicare, or other publicly funded health, or another publicly funded health benefit program. Students would be eligible to participate in the scholarship program in their 3rd and 4th years. Someone who gets a scholarship in their 3rd year is eligible to get another one in their 4th year. Each incentive scholarship award would be for an amount not less than the in-state tuition rate for the UVM College of Medicine. For each academic year of incentive scholarship received, the recipient incurs a full-time service obligation of not less than 1 year in a medical specialty priority area and in a setting that meets those requirements, not in Chittenden County, and accepts public funded programs. So the medical specialty priority area shall be primary care. So that's similar to the existing program. Approved specialties include family medicine, internal medicine, adult primary care, pediatrics primary care, obstetrics, gynecology, and psychiatry. So really the same specialty areas, but taking it out of the National Health Service Corps reference. And then it still requires someone who does not fulfill their service obligation to repay the full amount of the scholarship plus interest and penalty. Again, removes the references to the National Health Service Corps program. Says it will be administered in compliance with federal financial aid regulations and the IRS code. Payments will go directly into the recipient's UVM Student Financial Services account. The full terms and conditions of the award are described in the award contract or promissory note and are binding once it's fully executed. Requires AHEC and VSAC to enter into an MOU establishing their respective responsibilities for administering the program. That'll be subject to approval from the Department of Health. It allows.
That's where we got rid of the joint fiscal.
Okay.
Is that right?
I don't think there was joint fiscal.
Wasn't there on an MOU review?
There may have been something. Okay.
Yeah,
I didn't see it when I pulled the
It
language
was in the
in.
House draft of the language, I think. Yes.
I think that's where I took out, we didn't need to review it, and Senator Lyons agreed.
So then it allows the Commissioner of Health in consultation with AHEC and VSAC to establish additional medical specialties, recipient eligibility criteria, selection criteria, award terms and conditions, and evidence-based practices to meet the purposes of this scholarship program on an annual basis to best respond to Vermont's needs for physician workforce and access to healthcare. And then it allows the commissioner to adopt rules to plan, implement, maintain, and evaluate the program.
And this was amending some of the language. It's amending a bill that we passed last year. And this is something that we've been working on with Dr. McLean and Liz Cody, and it's amending what the House put in. And I've coordinated with the chair of Health and Welfare, and who is in agreement with what was being proposed, and said that because of her workload, that we would take care of it. And I'm proposing that we accept this language. It's been back and forth, it's been reviewed. And one of the changes was the House had put in that the MOU between the Department of Health, between VSAC and the AHEC would be reviewed, would have to be approved by Department of Health and then reviewed by Joint Fiscal Committee. And
you are right, I just looked, yes.
And we're in agreement that as long as the MOU has been agreed upon and the Department of Health is sanctioned it, there is no value of adding another step of joint fiscal. And so that's what we are doing here. And I would recommend that we accept this language for my own sanity, because I don't want any more emails changing it. Okay. All right. So thank you on that, Jen. Do we also have the one on the mental health, the DA, SSA workforce piece as well that we could
Yes.
close out?
Sure.
Okay. Just want you to know your chair has been busy here. And so is Jen and Stephanie. And
There we go.
everybody else.
Nope, that's not. Sorry, I'm having to find which of my many open documents this is.
It's the one that we had the reporting
There we go.
assignment moved from Vermont
Yes, no,
Care Partners to
right.
the
I just,
agency.
I had a bunch of things open and I had to find it. So here it is. All right. So this is
Ooh,
DA SSA tuition assistance, I should say tuition assistance and loan repayment language. This has the Agency of Human Services distribute the funds that are remaining from, if you remember a few years ago in the FY19 budget, $5 million was appropriated to AHS to make strategic investments to expand the supply of high quality mental health and substance use disorder treatment professionals. So of the funds that are remaining from that, AHS would distribute those to the DAs and SSAs equitably based on each agency's proportion of full-time equivalent mental health and substance use disorder treatment staff to the total number of FTE mental health and substance use disorder treatment staff across all DAs and SSAs statewide. So whatever their proportion is.
Jen, are we missing a verb in the first line?
We are.
Yeah, shall distribute.
There we go.
Thank you.
Oh,
Sometimes when you read it over, you just pass right over those.
Shall's a pretty important word.
It is. Agreed.
all right. Thank you for that catch.
Yeah.
It's what happens. It takes a lot of eyes, and even then, sometimes something
It
gets
does.
through.
It has not
Although
been
I
through
would
the
assume
editors.
editing
Right, editors
would,
has not looked at this yet.
Yeah.
So then it has the DAs and SSAs use these funds for loan repayment and tuition assistance to promote the recruitment and retention of high quality mental health and substance use disorder treatment professionals available to Vermont residents in need of their services as set forth in subsection B. So in subsection B, it says that each DA and SSA would make the funds received pursuant to subsection A available to its current and prospective employees as set forth in subdivisions A and B of the subdivision 1 on a rolling basis in exchange for a 1-year service obligation to provide mental health services or substance use disorder treatment services or both at a DA or SSA in the state. And the funds may be used for the following purposes: loan repayment for master's level clinicians, bachelor's level direct service staff and nurses, and tuition assistance for individuals pursuing degrees to become master's level clinicians, bachelor's level direct service staff, and nurses. Loan repayment and tuition assistance funds would be available to the current and prospective employees of the DAs and SSAs in the form of forgivable loans with the debt forgiven upon the employee's completion of the required service obligation. Until all of the funds have been expended, the Agency of Human Services would provide quarterly reports to this committee.
You know, I have to say quarterly reports. Why would we want
They
quarterly?
suggested quarterly. You may have however frequently you want them.
I know they suggested reporting that frequently. Do we really think we need quarterly reports,
No,
committee?
You
no.
want weekly?
Weekly?
Thank you, Senator
No.
Starr.
We
Well,
did-
and
I
we'll have
mean,
them-
nobody reads them. Why do we want?
Need them that often.
No, I mean,
Shall we do annual reports
Annual,
Maybe twice a year?
or
no,
maybe twice a year? That would be good.
Twice per year.
oh my God, look at all this asking for.
Twice a decade would be plenty.
I don't know how long the funds they're expected to last.
Yeah,
Madam
I
Chair,
mean, look at all that stuff.
look at all
Yes.
that.
I hear Senator Nitka mumbling. I want to know what she's mumbling about.
Let me tell you that this is what we had done before, and this is something that this committee initiated, was to do something with the mental health workforce. Originally, we set it up and it got too complicated because it involved both AHAC and VSAC, and then nothing turned out to be too complicated. So what this is basically doing is setting up a pro rata share out to the various agencies for them to administer for this purpose. And they are the ones that have set forth a lot of what is in here, in fact, was in the original bill. And this is what they are saying that they will provide for information so that we know that using this construct of distributing the money that is being used for the purposes. So this is what they are asking, that are saying they would provide to us, as giving the flexibility and the change in language of how the money is being administered. So even though it may appear more detailed than necessary, this is what they feel they could provide and should provide for accountability.
About twice a year.
Well,
That's
we've
what we
got
did.
twice a year.
Twice
up
each
there.
year.
Yeah,
That's what we have now.
Right, that's your change.
Oh, twice each year. Okay.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So we've already anticipated your thought, Alice.
Okay, good.
Okay.
We're consistent. All right. And so the information to be provided would be the specific DAs and SSAs that have received funds to date and the programs within each of those agencies in which the financial assistance recipients will deliver services. So they were giving as examples substance use disorder, mental health adult, mental health children. So that's what they have in mind there. The amount of financial assistance funding provided to each recipient, what the specific degrees or certificates toward which the tuition assistance recipients are working and those earned by the loan recipient repayment recipients. And then kind of how effective this was for recruitment, the number of new employees attracted to the DAs and SSAs as a result of the financial assistance, their fields of study, and the programs in which they deliver services.
So I would suggest that we approve this language
Yep.
once we've made the reporting less onerous. Okay.
Yep.
So thank you. We've taken off those two pieces of pending language. I'm going to, now we're at almost at 2:30. So I don't know if, do we have?
Cheryl with us.
Oh, yes, we do have Senator Hooker. Okay, so we're going to move on to the Dr. Dinosaur bill, which is a House bill as well. And what's the number on it, please?
It's 430.
430. Okay, so we have the reporter of the bill, and we also have Jen Carby, who probably was the drafter of the bill.
It was, yes.
Okay, so we know that this is to expand Dr. Dinosaur coverage. So Senator Hooker, shall we start with you, please?
Okay, thank you. Thank you for allowing me to come in and talk about this important bill that would allow coverage for children and for pregnant women who are not, who have a status that does not allow them to be covered under Medicaid. So the bill is really a new program. The program would be a new program. It would be Dr. Dinosaur-like in that it would provide the similar coverage, although it would be paid for by the state. So I'm going to let Jennifer Carby speak to what the specifics of the bill are and be happy to listen in and try to answer any questions.
And we don't, I don't know if it's a lengthy bill or not.
It's 5 pages.
It's a 5-page bill.
Okay.
Do you want me to put it up?
Yes, and we'll whip through it pretty quickly because I think what we're doing is, what we're saying is we want to provide healthcare coverage to children whose status, immigration status, does not bring them in under the traditional Medicaid eligible coverage that would come from Dr. Dinosaur. So it's really it's Dr. Dinosaur. It's just that rather than being able to get the Medicaid match, we are having to provide the coverage with state dollars only.
That's right. And it was important to DIVA that we not try to connect it. And the reason it uses things like Dr. Dinosaur like is because they the proposal is for them to do a more streamlined intake process, determination process, rather than having to do the full Medicaid eligibility determination, find somebody ineligible as a result of their immigration status, and then allow them to have this benefit. So it would be they'd be evaluating people, determining eligibility for this specific program. So we start out with some intent, basically saying in establishing this program, it's the intent of the General Assembly that the benefits and eligibility criteria should align to the greatest extent practicable with those in the Dr. Dinosaur program. And then it provides this coverage. It does say that term Vermont residents who have an immigration status for which Medicaid coverage is not available includes migrant workers who are employed in seasonal occupations in the state. So it's not just people who are here year round, but also people who may be here seasonally to perform work duties. So it directs the agency to provide hospital, medical, dental, and prescription drug coverage equivalent to that in the Medicaid state plan to the following categories of Vermont residents who have this immigration status for which Medicaid coverage is not available and who are otherwise uninsured. So children under 19 whose household income doesn't exceed that for eligibility under the Vermont state plan, Medicaid state plan, and pregnant individuals whose income does not include the income threshold under the Medicaid state plan for coverage during their pregnancy and for postpartum coverage equivalent to that under the Medicaid state plan. That's language because it's currently 60 days postpartum, but there's an option for states under ARPA to extend that to 12 months. So if the state were to elect that in Dr. Dinosaur, the same provision would apply in this program. Specifies that the confidentiality provisions set forth under the Medicaid program, that's section 1902A, shall apply to all applications submitted and records created under this section, except AHS shall not make any information about applicants or enrollees available to the US government. So it's a state-only program, and to alleviate concerns about immigration information going to the federal government, this says they don't share that information. It allows AHS to adopt rules to carry out the purposes. Then we have a one-time appropriation for sort of this transition year, as the program wouldn't actually be available until next year, assuming appropriations are made for it. So this has the sum of 1.4 million in one-time funds appropriated to AHS in FY22 be used for grants or reimbursements or both to healthcare providers for delivering services during FY22 to this population. So until they are eligible for the actual coverage under the program, there'd be money to providers to deliver the services to them. Then also grants to Vermont organizations that work with members of Vermont's undocumented immigrant community or the healthcare community to provide culturally and linguistically appropriate outreach and information regarding opportunities for these children and pregnant individuals to access healthcare services at low or no cost, both during this year and also later on during under the program. The outreach and information would include information on that confidentiality of records. And the third use of the funding is implementing the technological and operational processes necessary for DIVA to administer the program beginning on July 1st of next year. Section 3 has the Agency of Human Services providing information on the estimated FY23 costs of providing this Dr. Dinosaur-like coverage beginning on July 1st, 2022, as part of the agency's FY23 budget presentation to this committee and to the policy committees. And then the section 2, that 1.4 million in one-time money would take effect on July 1st. Everything else would take effect on passage, with AHS making that coverage available under the Dr. Dinosaur-like program beginning July 1st, 2022, subject to FY23 appropriations for that purpose. So it's.
Are they ready to implement July 1st?
They are ready. So this would be July 1st, 2022. They said they need 9 months or so to
Oh,
get it
okay.
up and running. So that's why there's that transitional provision. Otherwise, no, they were not prepared July 1st of this year.
Okay.
So
That is it.
can I,
And
can
then
I
it changed
ask,
to
All
the
right.
title.
Yes, go ahead, Senator Bruce.
I can't move around in the document, so
Yes. Where do you want?
it's hard to pull it together, but so this is doing a one-time money infusion to get the program going. And then is it committing the state to go forward, or are they coming back with data to the Appropriations Committee a year out to get that ongoing commitment going?
More the latter. So section 2 is the one-time appropriation, is sort of a transitional year. It's not really trying to run the program yet. It's laying the groundwork, but also giving money to providers to deliver the care now while things are getting set up. But a lot of it is this technological and operational processes that DEVA needs to do in this year so that they would be ready beginning July 1st, 2022. But then it has the coverage taking effect or beginning on July 1st, 2022, but subject to the FY23 appropriations. So they're coming back to you next year to say what they think it would cost, which I think Nolan is here and can tell you about the cost.
But
There
at
is
that
an
point,
estimate already.
we would have already laid technological groundwork, and we would have committed to it at that point, pretty much.
You would have taken steps to implement it, yes.
Yeah.
So my question, I guess, gets into, this is a base ongoing expenditure starting in 23.
Yes, subject to, obviously, to the appropriations for that, but yes.
Does Nolan have a fiscal note with him?
I believe he does. I will take this down and let Nolan speak to you.
For the record, Nolan and I with the Joint Fiscal Office. I do have a fiscal note. It's a little rough, but I can send it. It's very similar to what was passed in the House. I can also pull it up if you want.
Could Christie post it?
Yeah, I'll send it out in a minute. But basically what it says is that the estimated this is based on, so in short, I worked with DEVA to come up with an estimate, and they work with the advocates, and they estimate that there's about 22 undocumented pregnant women, and that cost would estimate about $1 million. Then there's about 100 children, but they'd be at varying per member per month, depending on what Medicaid eligibility group they'd be in. But the estimate's about 261,000. So it's a total of estimated to be about $1.3 million. And that's gross, no state dollars. That's what we think it will cost ongoing, potentially.
So if we pass this, then and get it set up, the House, right now it's one time for the startup and design and some payment to providers.
Right.
But in the interim payment, but it is really representing an ongoing expenditure. And so that's something that will have to be accommodated in the budget next year.
And just to be clear, on the House side, where the 1.4 was accounted for, it was pretty much accounted for as a base expenditure.
Well, that's what I was struggling with, Stephanie, because my impression from talking with you is that they had recognized that you're setting up something with a commitment to continue it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And why is the first year the same amount as when we get it set up and running?
Probably because you've got a lag time between when payments are actually being met. So the second year would be all provider payments, and the first year it would be a combination of startup administrative costs, programming, et cetera, and then some coverage payments.
I think that House, when they did it, part of it was they wanted to start getting money out the door to start helping people immediately while the program was being created by them.
Well, this should help reduce uncompensated care.
Right.
Wonder if we're going to see a concurrent reduction on premiums.
Yeah,
I
we
mean-
talked about getting Mullen in, didn't we, and asking him about that?
Not this.
No?
I don't think so, because we just got the bill.
Can I ask another question? And I
Yes,
guess it
you
was gonna
may.
go to Jen. So a long time ago, Bobby and I worked on driver's licenses for undocumented migrant workers. And there was a commitment from Department of Motor Vehicles not to share the information. And then over a course of 4 or 5 years, it became clear that they were sharing information.
Oh, let me tell you, the agency, the confidentiality
Okay.
climate and requirements is very, very different than DMV that even sells data.
Okay, that was my question is,
Mhm,
can we take that to the bank when it
Mhm.
says that they shall not share?
mhm.
I mean, this is a stronger statement than we had in that bill.
Uh-huh.
I just
Um,
wanted to ask the question.
Yeah, I would have to say that all these benefit programs are, the confidentiality is
Pretty strenuous.
it's very stringent, and people don't release information. Whether we're talking about food stamp eligibility to Medicaid eligibility to any of the other benefit programs, it's a very different situation. So if we say it's confidential, I would say that based on 50 years of experience, it is confidential.
Okay, thank you.
See, the only thing I'm wondering is, seems like we have ample one-time money. I just am wondering about a year from now. I hope that we have.
Yeah, that's why Stephanie's comment is so important, because the House, when it passed it, anticipated this as an ongoing expenditure and accommodated in their base. So even though
they
this is
did.
one time to get it set up and to make these interim payments, this is assumed as an ongoing, and they have ongoing revenue to support it.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so
No, I
I'm
think
going
it's
to
a
suggest
good-
that we remove this appropriation and we put it in the budget.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is obvious, and that is a lot of what we're doing here represents general fund commitment. And that general fund is generated through some of the other parts of the budget that free up general fund through the use of ARPA. And so this money is available as long as that construct and the budget is signed and becomes law. So this needs to come and be part of the budget. And I would.
So are you, what I'm wondering, are you suggesting taking out all of section 2 or just making section 2 grants dependent on funding being provided elsewhere?
I want to make
in
it, I want it
FY22?
contingent on appropriations and grants being provided.
So it'd be just basically the first line of section 2 coming out, and to the extent that funding is provided in fiscal
Yes,
year
yes,
2022,
yeah.
then the grants
Mhm.
happen.
Yeah,
Okay, thank
but
you.
It's with the understanding that we are going to put it in the big bill. That's my only point is, even though
We'll put it in the
language.
big bill as a very straightforward piece of money that says for grants and we
Yes.
won't, this bill won't be law yet, but we'll reference the programs being set up.
Yeah. Mhm. Is that something you can, Jen, you're shaking your head, that's something you'll take care of?
Yes, and thank you, Stephanie. That's helpful to know what it should say, and I will, yes, I can do that.
Okay, so once we make that change, so it makes it clear that, this will move forward, and it's a contingent on the appropriation and the appropriation we're going to put into the budget.
Yep.
All right, so unless there are further questions, shall we have our clerk call the roll?
Yes.
You're
are-
muted, Mr. Clerk.
Quiet as he's been in a while.
I know. Oh,
Okay.
there, you're back.
Senator Ballant,
Yes.
Senator Baruth. Yes. Senator Nitka,
Yes.
Senator Sears. Senator
Yes.
Starr. Oh, Senator
I was
Starr.
unstable at the moment.
Yes, yes for me.
Senator Westman,
Yes.
Senator Kitchell.
Yes,
Okay, we are unanimous.
I guess I'm the reporter because I have Diva. Unlike the House, Jen, we all have to, we all have our budget assignments. So, all right, once we get that language, I will then send that in the vote and the reporter to the secretary's office.
Thank you, Madam Chair and committee.
Okay. So do we have S-120? Is that, are you the reporter on that as well, Senator Hooker?
I am.
Okay. Shall we take up S-120?
Pretty sure we don't have possession of that one yet, but we.
We don't? Well, then
Just a technicality, but
Right. It actually, they decided this morning to make it a committee bill, and so it has not yet been introduced.
Oh.
Oh, then I can't.
We can still look at it if you want.
You can talk through it. It just, your action today will have to probably be,
I think right. Okay. So now we don't have S-120, we have a committee bill?
You do.
Right.
It's the combination of S-120 and S-132.
And what are those?
Okay.
Well, we're about to hear from the reporter.
Okay. All right. So this bill proposes to establish a task force on affordable, accessible health care to explore opportunities to make health care more affordable for Vermont residents and employers. It would require an accountable, that was the primary purpose of S-120. And then from S-132, it would require accountable care organizations to collect and analyze clinical data regarding healthcare quality and provide the results of its analysis to the Green Mountain Care Board. It would prohibit pharmacy benefit managers from engaging in certain activities with respect to entities participating in the 340B drug pricing program. The bill would make the Commissioner of Health responsible for the state health improvement plan and require the commissioner to provide information to the General Assembly about the plan. And it would require reports to the General Assembly on increases in health insurers' administrative costs, on accountable care organizations' care coordination initiatives, and on the likely impact of requiring health insurance plans to allow at least 2 primary care visits per year without cost sharing. The bill would also direct the Department of Financial Regulation to review Vermont's benchmark plans establishing the state's essential health insurance.
We've just done that in the budget.
Well.
Yes, they weren't sure if you were putting it in, so they put it in there.
I let the chair know that we were putting it in the budget. That was in her 7-page memo requested.
Okay, so would that be something you would want us to take out? What happens?
I don't know. You need to decide what vehicle you want to use.
Well,
we were putting it in at the request of the committee, the chair.
I think it wasn't clear to us this morning whether or not it had been included, and that's why it was included here as sort of.
Wouldn't you rather have it ride in the budget?
No.
No? I would.
I would defer to Jen.
And the bill has not been introduced yet, so we can circle back to the committee and take it out.
Okay. All right, that would be easier. We have been in touch with Commissioner Pichak. He has indicated his support for the language. He's reviewed it. And so we had already made a decision that we would include the requested language in the budget.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
You're lucky, Cheryl.
I got out of that one easily.
Yeah.
Okay. And if you want Jennifer to go through the bill.
Well, we're getting it because there's an appropriation.
Right.
I think probably that's what we need to focus on.
Okay, go ahead, Jen.
Okay, great. So I will put this up and direct you to the appropriation. And the appropriation is for this task force that Senator Hooker mentioned. So it starts out with findings. It creates this task force on affordable, accessible healthcare. It has 3 members of the House, 3 members of the Senate. The task force's duty is to explore opportunities to make healthcare more affordable for Vermont residents and employers, including identifying potential opportunities to leverage federal flexibility and financing and to expand existing public healthcare programs.
So would this task force then feed into our waiver negotiate? I'm just thinking about, because we have language that the Health and Welfare Committee already has about directing CMS in our waiver negotiations to
right, to try to keep or expand the flexibility.
Yeah, the language is to increase the state's flexibility to use global commitment investment dollars to increase access to care, coverage, improve health outcomes, strengthen healthcare delivery, promote transformation to value-based and integrated models of care.
Right, that language is actually, the language you just cited there is actually from our current global commitment waiver. So it's really looking to maintain or expand our flexibility and global commitment investments generally. It could affect this as far as, we may identify, the task force may identify things that we could use global commitment investment dollars for if we were afforded the same or greater flexibility.
Okay. All right.
But the timing is not really intended to feed in. The report from this group comes back in January.
I see. Okay. All right.
Yeah, our intent, I think, Madam Chair, was to make sure that we heard from Vermonters and what their concerns are about the healthcare system. And I would hope that it would feed into the negotiations.
Have we not done this before through the past couple of years? Seems like
as far as the task force, this kind of task force?
The kind of information that's going to be worked on here, it seems like a lot of groups have worked on this previously.
Well, maybe we could, Becca, do you want to speak to this?
We felt like, Senator, that there was a particular opportunity here that we haven't had in years because of the new administration in DC, that there were opportunities for expanding care under existing, federal programs. So that was the impetus. What is the opportunity we have now under this current administration that we haven't had previously?
And you're right, Senator Nika, that there is a provision in here about looking at what previous studies and analyses on affordability have done. So building on things that have been done in the past, but looking at this moment in time and what might be possible. And also focus on some other things like healthcare disparities, the particular impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on the uninsured rate, things like that. So as far as the funding itself, there would be a consultant. Where is it? There'd be consultant is envisioned to coordinate the work of this task force, and the bill appropriates $175,000 to the Office of Legislative Operations in FY22 for this consultant and to cover related costs of actuarial analyses, research meetings, and the per diems and reimbursement of expenses for the members, who again are all legislators.
Seems like we've got a couple of things here. Usually coordinating activities could be as a basic as scheduling public meetings. I remember years ago when we had the Poverty Council, we went around and met. We did it certainly with the child welfare after the child's death in Rutland, Senator Sears. It seems like to coordinate the activities of the task force, you're really talking about higher level activities, I would assume, because you're not going to have, you're going to have, I would think, Office of Legislative Operations do some of the, the
Right.
scheduling and,
Right. They're in here.
reporting. Yeah. So I was just wondering to coordinate the task force work. I'm just, it's more than coordination. That's all I'm saying.
There's a report, I think, that the coordinator would help to put together. I mean, that's part of the plan.
No, I was just thinking that if you're hiring a consultant, you really are hiring them to do higher level work than organizing meetings, that kind of coordination of activities.
I
But
guess we were real cheap back then. We just went around the state and held meetings and used lead council.
mhm.
I mean, I just think it's just like, well,
The council doesn't do work like this.
No. What is the funding source?
General
That's
fund.
for us to decide, I guess. Okay. All
where's
right.
that hearing aid bill?
Sorry?
The
Hearing
hearing.
aid.
What?
They did not include, so they put that in, although now it's going in your, in the budget to be looked at in the context of the benchmark plan analysis because of the cost to the state of enacting a new mandate
Yeah,
under the
that's along
Affordable
there
Care
with
Act.
dentures and all the other things.
Under the Affordable Care Act, the state would have to pick up the cost, defray, it's called state defrayal. The state would have to defray the cost of any new mandate enacted after 2011.
Yeah, that's what most of my constituents have been upset about, is we're the only state in New England doesn't provide hearing aid coverage under Medicaid
Well, it's going to
and
be
under
looked at.
insurance. So, yeah.
Yeah.
For 100 and how many thousands of dollars to look at?
Well, they've got federal funds to look at, to do a benchmark plan review and market analysis more generally. So that's part of it.
And that's what DFR is doing.
That's what DFR is doing, right?
Okay.
In consultation with their partner agencies in the state government.
Thank you
All right.
very much. Appreciate it.
All right. So shall we keep going? Data collection and analysis.
Well, that's separate. That's the ACO. I'm happy
yeah.
to take you through the
Okay.
rest of it,
No,
but none
no.
of the rest of it has a cost.
Okay. All right. So the 175 is for the legislature to engage in a contractor or a consultant to do to coordinate the activities of the task force is just it just seems like that's an understatement of what we want of this high level position.
Yeah, I mean,
it's-
that's a lot of money for a few months worth of work.
Well, not if you're having the person do actuarial analyses, research. Research is there research meetings or research comma meetings?
I think so.
I think
What
that
a
was the
reason-
language that was provided to me. I can certainly,
Well, what's a research meeting?
Maybe
Let me
as
look at-
opposed to.
Should there be a comma?
I don't know.
I would think it's analyses to cover cost of analyses, research, comma, meetings.
Not
It seems like you need a comma there between research and meetings.
so that they do research.
Certainly
They sort of,
put that in there.
is this a contract to sort of facilitate meetings as well, or?
I don't know. The information, the languages that was provided to me was actuarial analysis, comma, research meetings and travel.
I would think to cover the cost of research, I would think.
Yes.
Wait, where's travel?
Well, I didn't put that. I think we decided that was included in
That's going to
In the
cover the
compensation and
per diem and
reimbursement.
reimbursement, right?
And it does state that the meetings can be remote. So
Yes.
I think you need a comma, because I think what you're doing is paying this person to not only do analyses, but research. And
Right.
then,
to set up meetings.
Got a comma.
no, yeah.
Yeah.
How
So it
many,
sounds like if there were any costs associated with renting a space or something like that.
You know, maybe it's better to support the activities of the task force by
leave
providing actuary analysis. I'm just a little worried about coordination. Seems to be not at the higher level analytical level that I think you want here for a consultant of this nature. So I think you are retaining the services of a consultant to provide the task force with actual analysis, research, and then split out meetings and per diems from something else, because it just it seems like it's not stating the level of expertise that we would want 175,000 to pay. Becca, I know this is something that you have felt very strongly about, so maybe you could help us make sure that this money and the position here is at the level you had in mind.
Exactly. And I think you're moving in the direction I was just thinking, Senator Kitchell, that it's really not to coordinate the activities. It's really about supporting the research and the data that this task force needs to be gathering and understanding the information. So to what extent, thinking about our timeline, do we want to try to wordsmith this now, or should I huddle up with Jen Carby and the chair?
Given that you don't have, that this bill is still the Senate Health and Welfare Committee bill, it may make sense for you to, and I can leave the comment in there, but it may make sense for this committee to propose an amendment when you get the bill. I assume it will be referred here after it goes to rules.
Okay, it was voted out of committee.
It was, I would say, softly voted out of committee. We're going to have to go back because we just took out that benchmark and the DFR benchmark analysis. Sort of conditionally voted.
But Jen, also, I was going to say, this is appropriation language, so you could always, if you're going to pull it out and put it in the budget, you can fix it.
Well, that's exactly what I'm about to say, Nolan, is that, we have been saying we deal with this, so we could have some general language about the appropriation, you know what I mean? Subject to appropriation.
Sure. Would you still name the dollar amount? Or do you, when you say subject to appropriation?
No, we don't have to, but we would obviously have to do it in the budget.
Right.
And to the extent funds are appropriated, the Office of Legislative Operations shall,
okay,
engage a consultant, conduct meetings, whatever the language you guys come up with.
So what I would, okay, so we're going to have to, when we get because it's been voted out of committee, then the committee can't make the change to do this. We're going to have to amend the committee bill.
No, they haven't. I look for Senator Hooker, but I don't think it's actually been provided because I only just put it into this format. They'd still been looking at it in the S120 format this morning. So I think if it needed to be revisited, there was awareness in the committee this morning that it might need to be revisited. So I think it's up to you where you want to do that.
It seems like they should put in some more meat in terms of what the consultant will do for that price.
Down so you can talk.
We can do an amendment that will take care of the language relative to funds as appropriated, and then deal with it in the big bill. But the rewrite of what you want this person to do seems like that should be done by the policy committee, not not the Appropriations Committee. I mean, I can, you know, obviously I've been thinking about how to rewrite it, but, or, you know, Becca, do you want us to, if we're doing an amendment to deal with it, maybe, maybe by Monday, when we finish up the bill, we'll put the money into the budget, and we could move our amendment and it include a rewrite of what this consultant would do.
I think
Okay.
you're putting a comma in is a step forward, because I think the intent was for that person to gather information. There are only going to be up to 8 meetings of this task force. I don't see how we can read all of the reports and stuff and gather the information that's necessary without outside help. So that, I think you're correct, Senator Kitchell.
Yeah, it's research. So you had a comment, Bobby?
Well, I was wondering on line 9 of the language that we had up there, it says something about payments shall be made from the appropriation to the General Assembly. Is that, should that be from the General Assembly?
So let me just put this back up. So this is
On
for
line
the
9.
compensation.
The
From the
payment
general
shall be,
fund.
the payment shall be made from monies
Yeah,
appropriated.
we're
to
having to take it out of the legislative budget.
Right.
Okay.
Really?
No, but we're gonna.
Although
but-
it also then addresses per diem and reimbursement down here. So I don't, it's a little cyclical now that I'm looking
Well,
at
I
it.
think what we're saying for the members of the task force, they get paid the per diem like we normally do. The appropriation is for that, to procure those consultative services.
Right, but there's still the per diem compensation and reimbursement down here within
Oh.
that could probably come out if it's up
Yeah, I
here.
think so. Because normally when we do that, and we also make it clear for not more than 8 meetings, but we also, is this all just members of the General Assembly? The
Yep.
task force? Okay, okay.
Yeah, 3
Then
House,
I
3
don't think
Senate.
we need to do that, get rid of that and the per diem compensation
Yes.
in the I.
I agree.
But we're going to rewrite that anyway.
Right.
All right. So, committee, we could move the bill, amending by deleting that section, but we don't have a replacement language yet. But,
Okay, you don't have, the bill isn't a bill yet.
oh, that's true. So
It's still
that'll
just an
give us
idea.
some time, and we would put the money into the budget. And then we would put in some language around, as Stephanie just said, you know, as appropriated, and we can rewrite what we want the person to do. So we've got a little bit of time on that. Okay. All right. So the main thing is the 175, and that's got to be one-time what, general fund?
It takes it out of the general fund. I don't.
Yeah, that would be that's the source you would use for it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Well, we've got time to do that between, the important thing is to have that money have the budget reflect that money, include that money. And then we've got time to do our amendment that would be a rewrite that would not specify the amount of, it wouldn't reference a specific amount of money, and it would just reference as appropriated. And we will rework the language relative to what the consultant does.
Good.
And we've got time to do that. And we could just do it as an appropriations amendment, so it doesn't have to go back to the committee. We'll just do both. And so my question is, who wants to help write the replacement language on what the consultant does?
Shouldn't the committee have a part in that?
Yeah, the committee should write that. I mean, we don't know what it is they want done.
Well, I think we know, we want to have it, it's very clear that it's a very high level.
How about we cut it back?
I don't think we,
Super high level. Why should it be so high?
well, I think it could be up to, it doesn't have to be that amount. I mean, it doesn't have to come in exactly at that amount. So I'm gonna,
Say up to?
no, we usually do an appropriation, but it doesn't, oftentimes, something comes in less than appropriated. I'm going to suggest that I'll work with Senator Ballant and see if we can do some kind of, and then we'll share it with the policy committee to make sure it's all right. But I think that we can come up with something, and Jen, maybe you can help us think about how to frame that, so it's clear that we are talking about a person who is doing the research, doing the actuarial analysis, and a very high level amount of recommendations or whatever, distillation to formulate recommendations.
Okay.
And I think the desire is obviously to inform legislative health policy decisions. So committee, rather than our spending more time on a Friday afternoon here, we're agreeing we'll move the bill favorably, and we won't act on it today until we get the amendment, but hopefully by Monday or Tuesday we will have it. But as long as the money's in the budget that we pass, we're all set. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. I think that does it for bills. Senator Westman, do you have, I know that Stephanie came into Natural Resources this morning, and do you want to clarify the funding on clean water based on the work that your morning committee did? Or are you ready to do that? You're muted.
You're muted, Rich.
I thought when when the chair came in to present, what was it, 109, that he basically laid out the parameters of what on the weatherization piece, and we have
I'm not talking about whether, I'm talking about the clean water and the split and the testimony this morning that
we didn't make any decisions this morning about water.
Did the secretary recommend a split between the Clean Water Fund and the DEC for the $100 million at all?
She made a statement about what they would choose to do, but the committee didn't take any position.
So it'll be up to us then to split it. All right. Well, Stephanie and I'll talk about it and see what we recommend to the committee. All right.
She basically said that the act that's in place, was it Act 64, that we should just appropriate the money based upon that and let them spend it based upon that framework that is set in place. But the committee didn't discuss that at all.
Okay. Well, I don't know, Stephanie, I know that certain joint fiscal has had some discussions with Secretary Moore about what will work. Maybe we can just take that and see how it fits.
Yep.
Okay.
We have the sort of breakdown of the first year from the governor's plan, which is, I think, in the $40 million range, and that would probably fit. And then the remainder would go in the Clean Water Fund. You know,
And she recommended it not go in the Clean Water Fund.
Well, we're gonna, some of it should flow through the Clean Water Fund, but not, I thought her was not 100%.
I'm not saying, I'm just telling you what she said.
Okay.
All right, well, maybe we can get some clarification on that.
Yeah.
Okay. We had some other language, the study language for the fees and
The surcharges.
surcharges study to make it more expansive because of the testimony that we received from the court and the impact the declining revenues from fees or surcharges are having. So Senator Sears, you're there, I think. Maybe he's not, maybe. We need him because this is his section. Do we have other language that we can go through, or have I've gone through the ones that I was working on? Oh, Senator Sears, glad to have you back. We wanted to just close out the language on the study committee to look at surcharges and the programs that are funded. Have you had a chance?
The VSEA would like to be at the table.
On surcharges?
Yeah, because all the victims advocates are state employees.
What's that got to do with relying on revenue? Well, let's look at our language
Okay.
and
Thank you.
where they would. This is kind of unusual to have state employees on fees, isn't it? And tax
Usually.
revenue?
Yep.
So Chrissy, if you make me co-host, I can throw up the draft that I sent to Senator Sears and Senator.
If it didn't happen, you know.
Well, it seems like.
Well, let's look at the study. If it's,
The purpose of the committee is to address anticipated decreases in revenues and to develop a plan to ensure these programs are able to provide services. I would think that I would think that it would suggest that VSEA should participate because tax revenues are, support programs that are conducted by state employees. All right, let's keep going.
I'm just giving you the request.
Where did this come from?
Yeah, go ahead.
It came from the Center for Crime Victim Services, but I've also heard from the judiciary and various other groups that rely on fines, surcharges, and fees to fund their programs. And when those fines, as you know, and it's also the towns, quite frankly, that are also losing fine money because we're not, there aren't as many, especially during COVID, not as many tickets given out. So they lose on the fine money. But
yeah, but that they haven't been doing anything either. I mean, they keep talking about.
This is a national. I sent it to Senator Sears. What is it? Route 50, which is really, I think, done by NCSL, is talking about. I thought it was very timely because they were referencing this very same problem, and that it is regressive, and that it's as a source of revenue for program funding is a national problem. So this is really not unique to Vermont.
Well, and I agree. We had testimony that there were people who had been, disadvantaged by this because they couldn't pay their fees and surcharges. But then we have competing testimony from organizations that will see their money dry up. And so you in effect have organizations lobbying against the indigent because they want the money to come in, which is, it's a weird position to be in.
Yeah, it is. All right, well, let's keep going.
This is all over. once
But we-
this is all over, shouldn't the revenues come back?
No,
No,
they've
they're
been
not.
declining right
They've been
along.
declining for years. And part of the problem is, rather than rely on general fund to start programs, it was simpler to say, all right, we'll take a certain amount of fine money. We'll put on a surcharge. We'll do this, we'll do that. And as a
I know.
result, these
I know, I
programs
paid plenty of that.
are not getting.
And I'm not exaggerating either.
Let's keep going
The
here.
composition of the committee, we have 2 3s here. The one I added in this redraft was the one member from the judicial branch appointed by the Chief Justice. Am I hearing that you want to have, I hear that VSCA would like to be represented, but also do you want the league on here?
Might not hurt if we're gonna add, then I would add the league and the BSCA.
My question is one of precedent. Do we normally have the union involved
No.
in tax and revenue and these kinds of studies?
No,
No. I would strike them.
well, they're not in.
I don't see
Because-
why you want the league either.
That's right. It's really
Right.
around a precedent of who is involved in this nature of discussion and work.
I think that's actually, it's an issue that the Judiciary Committee should take up as a committee anyways. I mean,
Well,
why
but
do we have to have outsiders tell us what we should do and not do?
Well, the problem, Bobby, is that the Judiciary Committee doesn't set fees, it doesn't set budgets, it doesn't do all of that. And so if you were to want to move this to the general fund, what would you cut to get, or what tax would you raise, or how would you deal with it to fund these programs? Because they're hurting. If we, right now, we're able to shore them up a little bit here and there with one-time revenue, but it's still problems. And we have to decide something.
I think it's no different than we've got a shortage in the funding of 911. We have got so I'm just thinking that I'm thinking about the membership as it relates to the nature and the task of this committee and the extent to which we expand membership outside the administering entities. That's what
I'll withdraw the request for the state employees. And also,
I think I just have a hard time thinking about this precedent or the extent to which if we decide it's appropriate here, what about the funding of 911? What about the funding of X or whatever? It seems to me that is opening up or establishing a precedent that is very atypical, and I wouldn't necessarily think that we would want.
I appreciate that, and I'm cognizant of that. I mean, the House didn't have time to put this in, or whatever happened, I don't know. But when it came to the House, it was just the Center for Crime Victim Services. And in talking with others, it seemed wise to expand it to the others that are also relying on these fees and surcharges.
We actually, what brought it home was the testimony that we had from Pat Gable and the impact that the loss in these revenues are having on the court's budget. And let's face it, once you're getting into revenues, you're getting into budgets, you're getting into administration. This is, I just think that that the membership should be really as we've identified. The minute you start saying, well, we want employee representation, that could extend to just about every task force that involves state government.
Yeah.
All right,
I realize you've had the request, you've made the request, we've considered it, but I would recommend that we
I
keep.
withdraw the request.
Well, you don't have to.
Well, no, Marley just barked at me and said,
Oh, okay. So we need to keep
Mayor.
going. This is, so it
I'm
really
talking to the
started
dog
out.
when I said, come here, not to you, Senator.
Oh, well, we started out with crime victims because the loss of revenues and the declining revenues is really having a detrimental impact. Then when the courts came in and said, we're having a real budgetary problem because of the decline in revenues, we decided that rather than looking at just one area that's impacted by this loss, we should look at it in a comprehensive way. This is what this draft is designed to do, is reflect the decision to take a more comprehensive approach around the impact of these declining revenue streams that support programs or support the judicial branch of government. So I'm thinking we should keep going here, and if we can close this out.
So is this the composition that you want of the committee? And it's 13 members, 6 legislative members, and then the other 7 listed here.
It's a lot of legislators, isn't it?
Yes, why so many?
Well, because you've got ways and means, because you've revenue, judiciary, and appropriations.
Yeah.
That's when I said if Senator Sears was all 3, maybe he could get triple the pay.
Yeah, well, I'm not on finance.
No, you can only get double the pay.
You get double pay.
Dick, you've had a chance to look at it. Do you think the membership?
I'm fine, yeah.
In terms
I'm
of
fine.
the,
Yeah,
okay.
I didn't change subsection C at all. I'm still having the executive director of the Center for Crime Victims call the first meeting, and then the committee itself would vote for the chair. And you have to, if you want, if that process is okay.
I don't know. Do you think we should have,
I like the Chief Justice.
I was going to say, I think from a protocol perspective, we should have the Chief Justice.
Or
the first meeting.
designate.
Yeah.
Is it,
Mhm.
it's
Or
or
his-
designate, correct?
Yeah, the member from the judicial branch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think from a protocol perspective, that's
Yeah.
what we should
Probably,
do.
yeah, I think so at this point.
Yeah.
I've been watching The Crown on Netflix, so I think it's more appropriate.
Okay, so we'll change that in subsection C.
Are you, does that talk about Elizabeth I and her fight with Parliament over the prerogative of
Oh,
the,
yeah.
Among
No,
other things.
No, I'm beyond that now. I'm up into the 70s.
oh, okay.
Once they had Winston Churchill die,
Yeah.
I lost interest.
Oh, well, I guess I'm not on the same.
Or, no, breaking
Channel.
up Charles's marriage.
Oh, well, let's keep going here. It's Friday afternoon, and let me tell you, anything we
Yeah,
don't
I
do
know.
today, we're gonna have to do. Oh, I'm supposed to be at a meeting. I'm sorry. Let's wrap this up, and then we're gonna have to end.
I'm
You
good
gotta
with
know
it,
that it's
way-
being rescheduled.
with that one
Got another
change.
note that that's being rescheduled.
Oh, you just did?
Yeah.
Steve Klein just sent another note that it's being rescheduled.
How come he just said I was supposed to be, he just said reschedule. Oh, okay. All right,
Okay.
all right. Let's keep going then.
So powers and duties of the committee. If this I changed around a bit because it was all focused on the crime victims services piece. I did leave in sub 4 specifically in regard to those programs.
Well, I think that's, obviously, we want the focus, we certainly want to make it, that the center needs to obviously we need to make it clear that that's one of the areas that needs to be examined.
Yep.
Because that's what started the whole discussion. Anything, I'll keep going down, who provides E, and then can we keep going?
Oh, yep, sorry.
It says, need to go meet with the speaker, but does that mean I don't need to go?
Nobody does anymore because they canceled the meeting. Are going to reschedule.
Oh, okay, all right. November 1st, is that a good date? Or should we give them a little more time?
That's the reason I highlighted it, just given how,
Well,
do you want to push that out into December or even January 15th?
well, assuming that you need legislation, the Senate can't introduce legislation after December 15th.
Oh,
That's
Are we-
usually, I mean, we could do November 15th or something like that, it's fine.
okay,
You'd want, if there's legislation proposed, you'd want to have it ready to go. I don't know what our date is, but, remember that something like December 12th or somewhere in there, we're not allowed to introduce legislation.
So the date probably should stay the same then.
well, the latest it could be was November 15th. If we have to introduce by December 15th, you said, Dick, second
I
year?
think it is somewhere in the, usually it's between, I don't know how John Bloomer figures it out. It never did. It's usually somewhere between the 10th and the 15th.
Okay. Well, do you want to change it to the 15th?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, all right, we'll just change it to the 15th. All right, and
Do you
then
know-
no more,
Jane,
and then,
do you know how long we're gonna work, Jane?
well, I'm just trying to think. Dick, you probably are not going to, we're gonna have to do, we've got the courts, we've got both two pieces one time and any adjustments we make to the base. So are there any other loose pieces? I know people are getting tired. It's Friday afternoon, it's 3:30. But the more, as I said, the more little things that we can get out of the way. Are there any other little things after this? But first of all, before we go, are we ready with this language? We changed the
Fine
date.
with it. Yep.
Okay, we're gonna put it in. And if somebody's got a problem, we can always, we're making changes when we get into a committee of conference. Or, something. Are there any other pieces, Stephanie, that we could do easily without taxing people? But I'm thinking 3:30. We're gonna meet on Monday, starting at 9.
The only other thing I can think of, I don't know, Senator Westman, the language around the adult days, if you wanted to go into that one, but
Okay.
you may have left us the moment.
He may have, I think he did.
That one probably won't take very long on Monday.
No, all right. Then we'll inventory the language that we still need to close out. We've got a couple of draft language that we need on emergency housing that has come over, and we're gonna basically put in the language that was proposed to go with a $41 million emergency housing plan that
So
we
you only
took a
have
lot
to
of
appropriate
testimony.
the rental part of that. They already have the CRF in hand.
Okay. So, and that is that's the 36 million or the
36 million is part of the 41 that
right.
that they need that appropriation, but they don't need, what brings it up to 41 is the CRF, but that's already been appropriated to them.
So they need the 36 million is what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the piece that you talked about on Reach Up.
Is any of that for landlords of that money?
On the emergency housing, it would be mostly in the hotel arena.
So it's
There
not,
is money for landlords, and it's being administered by the Vermont State Housing Authority, and it's $110 million that is going out in rental assistance, and it can pay up to 12 months. The people have to have incomes under 80% of area median income. In addition, there's also assistance for utilities for those households, including arrearages on electrical or water, sewer. So that money just is starting to go out through the Vermont State Housing Authority. And there's a website that you could refer people to. And I think landlords can apply, but I think they would have to have agreement with the tenant because they've got to determine the income eligibility. But there is money for that. And the other part, so I'm going to say that we should move the requested language to appropriate the 36 million that is necessary to support the
FY22
emergency rental help that plan that we had Commissioner Brown go through in exhaustive detail.
yep,
In addition, there is a possibility, and I mentioned that under that second emergency rental, that we could do more money to assist reach up families with their rent. And so this would be language that would allow them to use some of these rental federal dollars to go out if it's possible, because you've got the problem with that 12-month limit, which still hasn't been clarified. So if the second round of the emergency rental can be extended beyond the 12-month period that was in the first round of rental assistance, it says up to 15 million would be that could be used to supplement, continue, or extend the rental assistance program for reach up as permissible, if permissible, as permissible under the federal rules. So they just want the authority that if that's possible to do, and under that second round, we would allow 15 million of those dollars to go out in rental assistance. So I'm going to suggest we get that into the budget, as much language as we can get in. Rich, do you have the adult day language? You've got one with money and without money. You might as well go to the one without money.
You're muted, Rich.
Stephanie has it.
I will open it up then and just a second. Let me open that document.
We're absolutely going to be done by 4, Bobby.
Stephanie, I have it. Do you want me to share it on the screen?
Do you need to
Yeah,
go?
yes, you put it up on the screen. Thanks.
What time do you
Yep,
have to
that'd
go,
be great.
Bobby? You're muted.
He said right now.
Oh, okay.
I said I've got a funeral that I should attend.
Well, you should attend it. If we go to 3:45, is that going to be too late for you? Do you need to leave right now?
I'd be really good with 3:45 too.
Okay.
Okay,
So I want to get this language, Bobby.
Bobby, if you
wanna
don't go to the funeral, they won't go to yours.
they won't be going to mine anyway, but they're a family in town that we.
Bobby, you should go right now. This language, I think you'll be fine with whatever we decide.
Okay.
And then
Thank you.
once we get through this language, we're going to call it a day.
Okay, thank you, and have a short weekend. We'll see you Monday.
Yeah.
So the first piece is the language to go with the 5 million for the adult days. And this language came from the adult days themselves. And what you see in yellow is the edits from Dale itself. So both the Dale and the adult days have come up with this language. So I don't see that as anything controversial, but they both would like the language.
Okay. I think that clarification is a rewrite is seems fine.
Yep.
All right, so now I had said, I thought that we would let them try, we would send out something instructive and about getting the adult days back operational in both Rutland and the Barry area.
So,
So one is with money and one is
Well,
come
and
back and
the-
budget adjustment.
the first, can you
Can
scroll?
you scroll up a little bit?
Right. So here's two choices. I asked Dale to come up with language to talk about giving them some instruction. The first part was the language they did. They left the line where the dollar amount was blank, but that was the language they came up with. They said to me it cost on average $73,000 a month to run an adult day. The $438,000 represents 6 months in that. The second language is language that I came up that just instruction. They'll work with community partners to seek organizations interested in opening adult days and shall request funding in the 22 budget adjustment process to provide restart grants.
I like the latter. I think 6 months at this point with so much work, I think instructing them that they have a role and a responsibility for getting these programs started is really important.
I would say to you that I think it's been hard for them to get to the place to understand that people think that they have a role. They see the adult days as private businesses, and they see that think that it needs to be somebody coming up in the community to do that. But the problem is in the section with the 5 million, we're giving existing adult days that are going to reopen what it looks like about half of the money that they need to run their business for the next year. The problem with a new adult day that would open in Barry, Newberry, or Rutland, or any place else that might open, because they have no history, they would not be eligible for any of that money. And the only thing I'd say about the top piece is, and it may not be possible for, if anybody could get off the ground before next January, I wouldn't want to hold them back, but I'm easy either way. We're going to do it. And if you like the second one, let's go with it.
Okay. I think that in light of how tenuous it is, there's a lot of groundwork to be done with these communities to even get to the point where there's a proposal that is fundable.
Yep, I understand that, but I want to give somebody, if somebody is willing to take this on and do the work, I'd like them to know that it isn't just they'll come and ask for money. I want to give somebody confidence that because I think these adult days, particularly in those two bigger communities, are vital.
Yeah, well, I think you've done that by they shall request the funding in the budget adjustment. So it really gives them a time to work with the communities, come up with a proposal and a commitment that the funding will be provided in the budget adjustment.
Yep.
So it's almost 3:45. I'm going to suggest we go with the second one and let Senator Sears, he needs to call it a day.
Yep.
And if other people say they really want us to keep working until midnight, let me know. Alice doesn't look like it.
Right.